Yeah. Living in this time behind enemy lines, so I got mine. I hope ya.
Good morning from the Batcave. It is Friday, April 11th, 2025. We're getting pretty close to Easter here, so I thought I'd start with some talk about eggs. I know I promised you guys I would do some kind of eschatology update. For those of you who are really into eschatology and are new to eschatology, I really recommend you watch my entire Zoom series that I have recorded on eschatology. There's a reason I'm not putting a lot of content on eschatology. I realize I could grow my channel a lot faster if I talked eschatology all the time. The problem is when you're good at eschatology, there's not so much news going on to you. There's a lot of news going on to other people who do not have their eschatology mapped out. But when you have your eschatology mapped out, it's like literally just saying, okay, it's heading here. And you have all these people who are like, oh my gosh, this is happening. 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 And you're like, yes, it's heading here. And I've been saying it's heading here for the past 15 years. And I just don't want to keep saying the same things over and over and over again and throwing a few details in the news at it. Now, there are people that do that and do it well. One of them that I pointed to is John Holler at Fellowship Bible Chapel. Trust me, I have scoured the internet since the early 2000s looking for good people at this stuff. And I can tell you most of them is speculative tripe. It's no good. It's sensationalized. It's clickbait. They aren't giving you much on eschatology, which is why when people come to me, and I just had somebody come to me and say, hey, I follow your channel. I think you're great, blah, blah, blah. And I look at their channel and I see astrology. Astrology has nothing to do with eschatology. This is, 10, 15 years ago, I'm seeing blood moons and all this crap. It's just astrology. Like, astrology has no bearing on eschatology. Nothing in the book of Revelation has to do with anything having to do with any signs of Virgo and Jupiter, and it's none of that. It didn't have to do with the early stuff in Christ. None of that has any relevancy, okay? Nothing in the zodiac is necessary to translate anything in the Bible. There are a couple of constellations mentioned in the Bible, but they're mentioned to make points that are right in the Bible, and you don't need to know anything about those constellations to understand and interpret passage. You just need to know that they exist, and the Bible is describing something that they do to make a metaphoric point. Okay, so why we're going to start with eggs? Well, because it's Easter, and because this is just a really obvious thing. Okay, one of the claims that J.D. Vance has made in the past, I've heard him make, I think in the past week or two, was that they've brought egg prices down. I have also heard this doofus here, who is some kind of video gamer, say that Trump's plan is a genius, or Trump is a genius, and his plan is going to, or is already bringing down egg prices. I don't know what bringing down egg prices means to you guys, but when I go to the store, and egg prices are $5-6 a carton, and 2 years ago they were 75 cents a carton. And somebody's like, we brought it down from $6 a carton to $5.75. That's not bringing egg prices down. Bringing egg prices down is going back to $1. Eggs were ranging between 75 cents a dozen to maybe $1.25 a dozen for 15 years. Multiplying the number of eggs we produce has been an easy thing, but we've got this bird flu thing going on. My personal opinion, this is not nature. This is an act of war. That's my personal opinion. Notice where these things are most prominent. Notice where they're thinnest. Okay, what do you have in these places? What you have, this is Colorado, this is Seattle, and this is San Francisco, Los Angeles. What you have here is major airports that fly to Asia. That's where you have the most outbreaks. That's not a coincidence. You see it thinning out and going and spreading from there. Again, the bird flu is going to go to birds, and birds are going to spread it around, and then it might catch up with farm animals. So this flu is apparently affecting dairy herds and poultry farms. And what I've read, or what I've watched on YouTube related to the poultry farms, is once it starts spreading, you have to cull the whole herd. Now, poultry herds grow back pretty fast, but you're going to have immediate huge dip in numbers, and you're going to have immediate loss of chickens, because these things are going to grow eggs for like a couple of years or whatever, and then they're going to turn into chickens that they're going to sell, or eggs. And it's been a couple years of this now. My personal opinion, it came from the same place the other viruses came from. This is just my gut check, okay? So what you're going to see is people advertising lower egg prices, and those are gimmicks to get you in the door. So what they're going to do is show you the lower egg prices, but you can only get one, and then the second one is a higher egg price. So this is something that somebody pointed out on Reddit. They're like lower egg prices, and if you look at it up close, that first box of eggs might be under $4, and then the second one you get is over $7. So it's really not, unless you only want to get 12 eggs at a time, which if you've got a family is not going to last you a week. Okay, now I'm a single guy. I can get a dozen eggs. That's great for me. I can get a dozen eggs, and I can make, a breakfast sandwich 4 times a week and have that carton of eggs last me 3 weeks. Okay, it's not a big deal for me. But if I've got a wife and 2 kids, or 3 kids, or 4 kids, that's 2 breakfasts if I'm giving them 1 egg, and we're done. So that second one is going to be $7.38, which means what am I paying on average for the 2? About $5-6 a carton. Okay, so these are things that people are masking. Obviously, you got Easter coming up. People want to have Easter eggs, even though it's stupid and God knows where it comes from, but it's pagan. Like, we don't need this. Okay, but prices are huge now. There's this really, really dumb guy I want to point out to you guys, because I'm not necessarily following his stuff, but I caught his stuff. Bear with me to find it again.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you might have...
And I'm just going to highlight something about propaganda and what's going on here, okay? So I've seen a handful of channels like this pop up since Trump won the election. Now, when you look at channels and you think, I want to show you guys how to discern other YouTube channels you're watching, okay? Now, I never heard of this guy before, but all of a sudden he's all over my feed, and he's like this alt-right Trump MAGA supporter head, okay? Well, the reason is because this guy, this is how I research channels. When somebody tells me to go research a channel, I'm going to go back and I'm going to comb over their videos and their subject matter and their thumbnails and stuff like that to see if they're full of crap, okay? This guy, you click on videos and you go to oldest, and you're going to see that this guy 7 years ago was streaming video games. This guy 1 year ago was streaming video games. This guy 6 months ago was streaming video games. But somewhere along the lines of 3 months ago, he started becoming a right-wing pundit. What happened? I'll tell you. Somebody paid him to become a right-wing pundit. He probably got some Elon Musk money or something like that, and he is just a talking head for right-wing talking points now, okay? So, yes, I have a friend who works in polling and stuff like that, the door-to-door polling that politicians do, and Elon Musk spent a lot of money, and he's getting involved in this. But what you have is this guy, and I want you to see how many videos he's made. He just started this 4 months ago is when he started doing this stuff. Notice we've got 5 months ago. So 5 months ago, we're in April right now. 5 months ago puts us right around the time of the election, okay? And we see classic Trump rally. We see Trump's master plan, okay? We see these big things coming, but before this guy was doing video games. 11 months ago, 8 months ago. What happened? This guy apparently got kicked off of Twitch or something like that, and he had a decent following. Notice his videos get thousands of views. So somebody probably just hired him to say, you're going to be a right-wing talking point guy now. So all of a sudden he starts going government stuff, Boeing stuff, diversity stuff. You see the frog stuff here. And then it's just going to go, and this guy's going to pump 4 videos a day. So this is his full-time job. These are short videos, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, but he's probably reading scripts. He's making a thumbnail, making it look like it's his original thoughts, all the way up to, look at this. Here's somebody we want you not to like, and we're going to talk crap about them. Okay, now, I probably don't like these people either, but what I like even less is somebody trying to manipulate me with clickbait. Okay, so when you see stuff like this, you click delete this channel. There's actually apps you can get that you don't see this channel anymore. I don't want to see it anymore. I don't want to see anything from this. You can click not interested. You can click don't recommend videos from this channel. I do that a lot these days, okay? You guys need to start doing that. You need to remember Facebook, X, YouTube, all of them are becoming lying machines. And they're using the algorithms and they're using the clickbait to get you to look at bullcrap. And they're just out to confuse you and distort you and waste your time. Get rid of that. You might as well be playing video games. You're not going to get smarter by listening to stuff like this, okay? So I just want to show you all these videos were in the past 4 months, okay? And recently he's telling you how Trump is defeating the IRS. He's defeating China. He's checkmating everybody. He's fixing the economy. His plan is genius. And this guy is giving you standard fake talking points from the right. Again, probably paid for by Elon Musk, probably funneled through the Trump administration and their allies. And they're saying stuff about how Trump's plan is a genius. And he is going to bring down the price of food. He's going to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. And he's not. He's going to bring the black horse of the apocalypse. Okay? Now, as a starting point, I always start with the Bible. I don't start with the headlines. I start with the Bible. And this is why I'm going to have less new and fresh content for you guys, but better, more discerned, wiser content, okay? I'm not going to try to tell you where to move or where to invest your money. You need to be led by the Lord in those things because that's going to be circumstantial. For some of you, the best thing you can do is pay off your house. For some of you, the best thing you can do is get into certain kinds of securities versus others. For some of you, it's going to be to start your own home business. And I have friends doing all of this, okay? I have friends who are going from being employed corporately to owning their own businesses. I have friends who are getting into real estate. I have friends who are paying off their houses. You might be in a great position to get a farm. Okay, I'm not going to tell you get out of the stock market or get in the stock market or sell over here and buy over here because I'm not an expert in these things. What I'm doing is getting the heck out of the stock market, seeing if I can get myself my hands on another house before things go too crazy, and hopefully get it in a bit of a dip because I think hyperinflation is going to come after that. So that's my goal this year. But I'm in a market where there happens to be overbuilt houses. Again, it's market to market, and you have to think about that. But I would be thinking about World War III and what's coming. I would seriously be considering, if you're anywhere between Seattle and San Diego on a port city, I would seriously be considering moving somewhere else. If you're on the East Coast between Boston all the way down to Norfolk, Virginia, I would seriously be considering moving somewhere else if you're in a port city. If you're in major metro areas where they're having sanctuary cities, I would seriously be considering moving to another city if possible. And if you're in a major metro where people are moving to that city and you're able to sell a house at a premium because people are moving to that city and move further into the country and potentially even get your hands on some land where you can grow some chickens and farm some goats and stuff like that, and you have the aptitudes and things like that to do that, I would seriously consider doing that. I'm not great at stuff like that. You need to be the kind of person who knows how to fix your own car, and those things come naturally to you. I am not that kind of person, okay? Wish I was. The people I know who are like that, they save themselves a lot of money, but that's what you need to be successful in those endeavors, okay? Unfortunately, I'm not, but I'm, plying my trades where God's giving me my giftings, and that right now is heading towards writing, heading towards ministry, heading towards, obviously, YouTubing, and then just making some wise real estate decisions and getting the heck out of the stock market. Personally, I'm not saying everybody's going to lose in the stock market. I'm not saying sell, sell, sell. I'm not saying move it from here to here. But what they're showing you that they can do with the stock market on a turn of a dime is basically like national and even global level pump and dump, where there are going to be winners and losers. What happened this past week in the stock market is not a glitch, it's deliberate manipulation. I mean, to make the Dow drop 2,000 points and then go back up 1,000 points is insane. It's insane that Trump can just say something and that happens, but he knows he can do that. And he's doing this with policy, and this is a negotiating tactic for him. Well, what people think is going to happen is, what Trump is saying he wants to do is reindustrialize America, and he wants to move manufacturing back here. He wants farmers selling their own farm goods here. And propagandists like this guy, you need to understand, these are propagandists. This guy is not an expert in anything he's talking about. He's getting probably graphs and charts and formal talking points from people who are in the know or in the Trump campaign. Okay, these are bought and paid for advertisements, basically. What you're finding with these guys is they're just going to repeat the same stuff because they think the macroeconomics makes sense to them. Okay, they don't understand anything about macroeconomics. They don't understand finance. They don't understand inflation, where it comes from and how it happens. And what these people are going to do is they're going to give you trends that are way overgeneralized and not think through the details on these things. So I'm going to give you an example. This guy is going to tell you that food prices are going to get cheaper because they're going to force farmers to sell less of their food products overseas and more here in the U.S., which is going to bring food prices down. That's not how that works. We're kicking out the illegal immigrants, which is going to make the price of farm labor skyrocket. It's going to double at least. And yes, those farmers who sold their excess overseas are subsidized by the U.S. government so that they can sell it cheaper, both in the U.S. and overseas. So what do? Well, they essentially flood overseas markets with their goods. They have a place for it, but they're subsidized by the government. They're still selling it cheap. But we also buy stuff from overseas, and we have for centuries. Bananas from Guatemala, avocados from Mexico, like all these foods that have become a main part of our diet. Can you imagine if all of a sudden, bananas, one of the cheapest foods, avocados, I can go to the store and get 3 avocados for $1, or good avocados, maybe 3 for $2. All of a sudden it's $1 a pop or $2 a pop. That's what's going to happen. They're at 125% tariffs on China. What happens when they go to these tariffs on Guatemala and Mexico? Your bananas and your avocado prices are going to double overnight. And you say, well, we'll just grow more avocados here in California. And who's going to pick those avocados? Well, people who are making at least $15 an hour. That's who. Then the fuel prices are going to go up, and they're going to, all of a sudden, you're going to be having $2, $3, $4 avocados. So that avocado you're getting on that sandwich in that restaurant, and that bacon that you're getting on that sandwich in the restaurant, all of a sudden it's not adding $1, it's adding $3, $4 to a very good source of protein and healthy fats. Oops. Yeah, you didn't know avocados were indigenous to Mexico? Oops. Wasn't thinking about that ahead of time. And these are the kinds of things that these talking heads are not going to tell you. Okay? Now, starting with the Bible, which is what we do always, we got to remember that, and this is what I'm just telling people, and I've been telling people this for years, we are in Revelation 6 right now. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are rolling right now. They haven't gone to full scale of everything that's going to happen with them, but remember, Revelation 6 is going to ultimately crystallize in nuclear World War III and a worldwide earthquake. Okay, so these are the, when you look at Revelation 6 and these horses and these effects, these are the things that are all being released to build up towards this. So, okay, when you see these horses being released to run through the earth, they're not pouring out a judgment. They're being released to run through the earth. In other words, these are spirits going through the earth to influence events towards a direction which is ultimately going to bring you to the rich and their servant class hiding in the rocks and the caves. This is literally people going deep underground this is already a pre-planned thing. I promise you, this is what Boring Company's involved with. I promise you they've been building towards this since the nuclear bomb came out. Literally, I would tell you guys, if you have access to Amazon Prime, look at Fallout. Fallout is literally about these people who went underground and then they came out after a nuclear war in America. Okay? On the show, this is a real thing. When you go to Fallout, if there's a number that they give you, and this is 2024 when this came out. Okay? Now, my guess for when this is going to happen with a nuclear war is 2029. That's my guess. Okay? I could be wrong. The Lord could tarry. People could repent. Don't see that happening, okay? On Fallout, which came out in 2024, they were advertising, this is in the past tense, these bunkers that you could go in if you're rich and buy a seat in these bunkers. Literally on the show, they give you a real phone number that you can call if you want to buy a seat in one of these bunkers. And in the show, they say, it's in the past tense, but they say we're doing an experiment where people are living underground as an experiment for the next 5 years, but after that you can buy your seat in one of these bunkers. And what happens in the show is that they buy the seats in the bunkers, the rich do, and then they launch nuclear war on the rest of the world because they think they're going to save humanity that way, okay? Now, the number they give you when you call it, I want you guys to hear this. People are doing this. This is 213-258-2858. You can do this yourself. This is my opinion. I think this is a real thing. I think what people are saying that this is just a scare tactic, I think it's a real thing. I'm not going to mess around with this number. I definitely don't talk and try to, but I want you guys to hear what happens when you call this number. People are doing this, okay?
The Fallout show has a real number you can call. Just make it in a vault, and if you call...
This is what really happens when you call this Fallout number. So, I'm not in the habit of just following sensational stuff and looking for Illuminati confirmed stuff in the movies. However, when I see stuff in the movies and the films that sounds exactly like what I'm predicting per the scripture, I take note of it, okay? So when I'm seeing and predicting roughly that in 2029 people are going to go underground and that's when the nukes are going to fall and all that stuff, and I hear something on a TV show saying in 2024, saying 5 years from now you're going to want to be in a bunker, and here's a number that you can call, and it's fiction, my gut's going, I don't think that's fiction. I think it's code, and people who are in the know are leaving messages on that number, and the right people with the right qualifications and money are getting a call back. That is my opinion, okay? Now, can I prove this? No. Nobody's going to come out in the news and tell you this because this is a secret, okay? They mask it in fiction, but there's a real number that you can call, and you're going to hear a guy screaming, but that doesn't mean you can't talk back. You're going to hear a guy screaming, and then you're going to hear a beep, okay?
Okay, bye. You could also text...
So you're going to hear a guy screaming, and then it's going to beep and hang up on you, okay? That doesn't mean you can't talk on it and leave a message. And if you have the right... Oh, hey, I'm a roboticist. I work for XYZ company. I've got 500 grand in savings. I want to go underground. You might get a call back. That's not going to go on the news. That's not going to be on YouTube because they're going to be sworn to secrecy and it's going to be low key. But that might be real. I'm not saying, I'm just suspecting that might be real. So, that's what's going on. Now, meanwhile, we have over here, this war that is going to transpire, and it's going to turn to nuclear war. And the whole point of the nuclear war is for it to be scripted, and it's going to have two main effects. One is take Russia and America out of the global balance of power. You're going to see Russia's probably eastern industrial base probably nuked. I don't think you're going to see North Korea nuked. I think you're going to see North Korea invaded, maybe one nuke, maybe Pyongyang is going to be nuked, and that's it. But there's a possibility that you're going to see China nuked. We have Chinese troops in Ukraine right now, so I'm going to get into that in a little bit. So there's a possibility of that. But more than likely, China's going to get Taiwan, and they may even end up with troops in Canada, and they may be supporting a limited invasion of the U.S. But by the time it's done, by the time the nukes fall, everyone's going to stop and they're going to go back and they're going to claim peace and they're going to get rid of nukes. And basically, we're going to get this idea that cooler heads have prevailed, and all of a sudden there's going to be these 10 super states that are ruling the world, and everybody's going to be thanking their lucky stars that cooler heads prevailed and we have the right people in power. Only it's the wrong people in power, because those are going to be the people who give power to the Antichrist. Okay. But what you have here is these four horses. They're spirits that are being sent into the earth to build people towards this thing that's coming. Okay. Now we'll get into some more details of the different wars and rumors and wars that are going on here. But the point is it's building up towards what's coming. These are not judgments that are suddenly poured out. Okay. So when you see a quarter of the earth killed, that's not going to happen in one fell swoop. We're building towards a quarter of the earth being killed, and we have a combination of things. We have old people dying. We have disease, we have war, we have famine and poverty and people starving to death, we have persecution of Christians, and we just have people not having babies because of the stress of it all. And the combination of all those things, by the time we get into Daniel's 70th week, is the population of the earth is going to be, from its current, I think, 8 billion. Its current 8 billion, it's going to go down to 6 billion. That's what we're going to see by the time we get into Daniel's 70th week, roughly 5 years from now. Now, it could happen after that, and I realize this is an audacious claim, but could we see 8 billion turn to 6 billion over the next 5 years? Yes, you could. We have not begun to see World War III really advance to what it's going to. We're definitely not seeing a nuke fly. We haven't seen famine get to what it's going to, but how fast you can kill that many people with a world war and a global plague and pandemic scenario? Yes, you could. Now, if it doesn't happen like that, and I'm just wrong, and the date's pushed out, then I'm just wrong. But that's going to happen per Scripture as far as my interpretation could tell. Okay? John Holler, he doesn't agree with me. He thinks given control over a fourth part of the earth is not the population, but like the area of the earth that this death is given control over. I totally disagree. When you see Russian and North Korean and Chinese troops now all involved in Ukraine, what China and North Korea are doing are sending their troops there to gain fighting experience that they can come back and train people in China and North Korea for what their plans are. Okay? That's huge. And remember, in China and in India and in Southeast Asia, there are huge population centers. So if you see China starting to fight in a big way, just China could get rid of 500 million people, let's say. Okay? So that's a quarter of the people that need to go. You could lose 500 million people in China, and they're still going to have 800 million people. So nukes could fall and people could starve all over China, and they're still going to have 800 million people. And these kinds of things have happened in history with huge plagues and wars and stuff like that. So don't think it couldn't happen now. We're in a trade war. That means food's going to get way more expensive in China and here. But we have more money here, and we have a lot more access to advance our farms and stuff like that than China does there. They're kind of maxed out in terms of their capacity for farming. So if bad things happen over there, it's going to hurt them a lot more than if they happen here. So how are we getting from 6 billion to 2 billion? Again, World War III, global famine. Okay? You're sitting here going, $7 an egg, that's horrible. Yes, it is horrible, but imagine being a person where those eggs are your main protein source. And in large parts of the world, they are. Think about that. What happens when you're not getting protein anymore and then a disease comes through? You're dead. Why? Because the reason we eat chicken soup is because it's loaded with zinc and protein. That's what you need to fight colds, and just a cold. What happens if something like a coronavirus comes through just like that, and all of a sudden everybody's shorted on protein because their main sources of eggs, which is all over Southeast Asia, is literally the egg they put in their stir-fried rice because meat's way too expensive. And we're culling chickens and soon culling cattle, and all of a sudden that protein source that you used to think you're going to get is toast. Okay? So that could happen. It doesn't take a long time for people to die, especially when you already have an aging population and there's a demographic decline going on because there's so many boomers, and there's your generations after them are having 1 to 2 kids. It's already built into the demographics of the system, and the elderly are going to be the first to go if you have a lack of protein and all the the diseases coming through. So just that could happen without the nukes and without World War III, but the nukes and World War III are coming. Now, as far as the white horse and the black horse, we know that those are going to affect America probably the worst. And the reason we know that is because when you go to Zechariah chapter 6, I believe, you're going to have a version of the four horses here, which is going to be based on, remember, the horses represent spirits, and this is common between different prophets to have similar visions of these spirits that look different, but they're kind of representing the same thing. So you're going to see four spirits. Notice he said these are four spirits of the heavens, which go from standing before the Lord of all the earth. And these four spirits, notice they're four distinct spirits, but here they're represented in horses with chariots. There they're just represented with men on horses. You're going to have the same thing with John in Ezekiel, where they're going to have visions of the same angels with eyes round about and these beasts and stuff, but they're going to look slightly different to them because it's a spiritual vision that they're interpreting these spirits as images. Okay? And so the four spirits of heaven are here. They're going to be red horses, black horses, white horses, and grizzled and bay horses. Okay? AKA, there's your war horse, there's your famine horse, there's your spiritual deception horse, and there's your death and hell. Okay? Notice there's two. The pale horse and death is followed with them. And grizzled means grayed horse. So pale horse, grayed horse. Okay? Bay, I think, is just another color of a horse, but the point is there's two different kinds. Why? Because death and hell follows with him. Okay, so we see this, and then we see these mountains where brass typically represents judgment, like the refiner's fire, which makes brass hard, basically. And these four spirits of heaven are going to go there, and it says the black horses which are in go forth to the north country. So the north country, I believe, is North America, possibly Europe and just the economic north in general, but definitely North America. And it says the white go after them. So the main two things are economic disaster leading to famine and religious deception. Do you have this in Russia? Yes, you do, with Alexander Dugin and all the weird fake ortho bro stuff going on in Russia. Do you have it going on in America? Yes, you do, with the Trump worship and so many other things. Okay, the black horses, the economic collapse is coming to America. Those go towards the north, and then it says the grizzled, that is death, if you remember, goes towards the south country. So we're going to have death here, but we have a lot more money to spend on food, and so we are going to save ourselves and buy that food. And then the people in the south, notice the grizzled, that's death, okay, are going to take the blunt of it. So Southeast Asia, India, Africa, South and Central America, they are going to take the blunt of the starvation. So you're thinking, well, why all the rich and the white are the source of the problem? Why are the people in the South suffering the brunt of it? And the answer is because this is heading towards the Antichrist kingdom. Those rich moneyed interests in the North are not going to go away. The richest are going to take care of themselves first. Nobody's going to take care of the poor. And then they're going to keep advancing through that wealth disparity, the technology and the infrastructure towards the Antichrist empire, which is going to be basically Skynet. Okay, so the South is going to be where the majority of those deaths happen. That's where the majority of the population density is. That's where, famines and high prices are going to cause a lot more poor people, because you're talking about places all over the world where people, like, literally their daily meal in India, there's tons of people where their daily meal is a handout, or they work all day for that daily meal and that's all they do. They're already working for a full day's wages just to have their meal, or just what it takes to feed their families. Their house is made out of clay or bricks or cinder blocks or whatever, and it's survival mode for them. And then they go to work all day on a farm or whatever, and they get enough food to eat. That's it. There are people like that all over the world. They are the majority. We who are rich in America are the minority. That's going to happen. The bay went forth, and they sought that they might walk to and fro in the earth. So remember, if that is death, this is Hades. And he said, and sought to go to and fro the earth. And he said, get thee sent hence, walk to and fro through the earth. So what is that? This is death going to the south country. And remember, we don't see where the red horses go because they're going everywhere. There's world war, okay? And so Sheol is collecting all the dead. If these are death in Hades or death in Sheol, they are collecting all the dead from all these different sources. Now, he said, then he cried upon me and spake and said, behold, those that go towards the north country have quieted my spirit in the north country. So he said, he cried to me. So who's he? He said, the angel said that. So the angel this is probably the angel of the Lord. He's saying, they have quieted my spirit in the north country. What does that mean? Probably that because the majority of rich and influential churches are in the north country, and I'm thinking mostly in America, judgment begins there. And what is going to go on in the religious deception, the white horse, is going to be persecution and killing Christians. So they're going to kill these Christians. They're going to take their wealth, and that is going to allow them to survive the war and famine and all that stuff, and that economic disparity is going to keep growing, okay? There's going to be a major storm of persecution of Christians before this is coming. So what we're seeing right now with the Trump stuff is Trump is basically ticking off the entire world with trade policies. And what Trump is doing is he is not just causing these major dips and sways and stuff like that in the Dow. He's causing it in all the world markets, which means he is affecting the holdings of the rich all over the world, which means all these people who they've accepted the global world order, which is American military dominance. The rich in all these countries has learned to make money on the stability of that world order. He is destabilizing that world order, which is the only thing keeping the rich in those countries to basically propagate pro-America positions in their governments and among their people, because they get rich from it. Well, when you start taking their rich, do you think they're going to keep propagating pro-America positions? The answer is no. And what you're seeing is it's going to be pushing America toward becoming like a Nazi Germany. They're going to be a pariah state for the whole world. Nobody's going to be on their side. Don't be shocked if Canada starts bringing Chinese troops in. It's because we're threatening to annex Canada. So Canada just completed a pipeline. Remember, we're threatening to annex Canada. Canada just created a pipeline from Alberta down to right down here above this is Seattle and all that area, but this is I forget the name of the city. But they now have a natural gas infrastructure and an oil pipeline that is going right to here to ship out oil and natural gas to China. If we're threatening to annex Canada, do you think Canada would allow Chinese troops to come in and guard their interests in terms of these oil pipelines? And the answer is yes, they would, because Justin Trudeau is a communist. Now, I don't know if Justin Trudeau is still in charge there. So Justin Trudeau is no longer in office. He just got unelected. But you have super left-wing people in Canada. And if we're threatening to annex Canada because we want control of this oil, most of this oil goes to the U.S., they've just completed pipelines that take this stuff to, I forget the name of this port. Need to download better images like this. And I apologize, you guys. This is just me walking through the internet because I'm not as invested in digging up this stuff and teaching on it anymore. I've got my book. I've got my videos. I'm going to give you an update on what's going on, but I am not going to keep trying to sensationalize you with more fear tactics. I want you to be thinking about how you're serving God right now, how you are cleansing yourself from the sins that you'd struggle with, how you are leading other people to Christ, how you are discipling people, and yes, next to that, how you're physically surviving. But don't be fearing how you're going to physically survive all the time. Now, here's the pipeline going to Canada. Now, here's Washington. Okay? So, if Washington's right here and you've got Seattle down here, and this pipeline is just north. Oh, it's Vancouver. No. This is what I get for getting away from recruiting. I'm not staring at maps all the time. Yeah, it's Vancouver. So this massive pipeline, so they've got oil and natural gas floating from Vancouver. It's right on the U.S. border, okay? So if China's oil and gas interests are legitimately threatened by their trade ally Canada, and we're threatening to annex Canada, would they take in Chinese troops to defend their interests here? And the answer is yes, because people have been noting troops from Chinese troops doing drills in Canada for years. For years, Canada has been allowing Chinese troops to train in Canada. Why? There's terrains they have in Canada that China can't train on, so they're literally allowing Chinese troops to train in Canada. Do you think that might have anything to do with the fact that if the U.S. tried to annex Canada, they would take in Chinese troops in this area to make sure that doesn't happen, to guard their pipelines and guard their economic interests and these major trade ties to Canada? The answer is yes. We have been manipulating and bullying Canada towards getting their oil into their markets, going back and forth saying you can build the pipeline, now you can't build the pipeline. You can build the pipeline, now you can't build the pipeline. China's like, this is stupid. Let's just build a pipeline to China. China is never going to say, don't send us the oil. While we've been going back and forth for 20 years on whether or not, we can build this pipeline and make this efficient. And then what we do is we pipe it all the way down to here to be refined, and then we pipe it throughout the country, when in reality all that refinement should be in North Dakota and Minnesota, which is way safer in a World War III scenario. You could have these places right here where it's refined, and then it's just like it's going out west from here, it's going to the Midwest from here, and then some of it goes down south, but Texas has got their own oil, so why would you need that? That's what should be happening. But it's not happening. We've been using it as a political tool forever, going back and forth, left and right. So now they've got pipelines going to China, and they're going to sell a bunch of oil to China. Now, the end game for America is basically America getting split like Germany was after World War II, after World War III. That's the end game for America. Then it's going to be part of the North American Union, and that's going to be a new political entity, and you'll never have a United States of America rise. You're going to have something like a liberal America with this core heartland of America being like the embittered Deep South after World War or after the Civil War. So they're going to be down here, and they're probably going to have their hokey sheriffs that are going to be mistreating anybody who comes through who ain't from around these parts, and doing the same stuff the South was doing after the Civil War with Freemasons and crap and KKK and crap like that. So you're going to have that down here. But the whole political entity of North America is going to be under a new form of government, and in the mainstream in the big cities and the places where all the money's flowing, that crap ain't going to fly. So you're going to have something like that, and then there's going to be 10 of those, and those 10 are going to give rise to the Antichrist lickety-split. So once those 10 kingdoms are established, within probably 3.5 years, the Antichrist is going to claim rule of the whole world by sitting in the temple and saying he's God. Okay? America is going to be split. They're going to be pinned down. They're probably going to be nuked along this coast and along this coast, and probably a couple of major port cities within, possibly cities like Chicago, possibly cities like Atlanta, possibly cities like Charlotte. Those are what are called inland ports, because so many highways and hub traffic flows through there that you're going to have tons of warehousing of stuff, which is going to be distributed throughout. And what's going to happen because of that is they're going to rehaul the American supply chain to keep America weak and divided and under the control of essentially China. Probably in the East, more like an Anglo-European bloc, but you're probably going to see this all become de facto part of the EU, or like a British Commonwealth. Nuke. Major ports are gone, and then everything's shipped up through Mexican ports here. And then maybe Vancouver and Seattle becomes a Chinese port. There could be full-on takeover or de facto economic takeover of ports here. You could see Mexicans all of a sudden retaking all of California. Could happen. There could be a reason why they're letting these cities go to crap, and the wealthy wise are leaving, because there could be a bigger plan to just allow Mexicans to come back up through there. That's better for them economically. And then this becomes so diversified that you'll never get an America back. You could have Cubans coming up into Florida. You could have all this stuff happening so that you never have a primarily white Anglo-America coming back. That's probably the goal. And so we're heading there. And so what Trump is doing, he is not a conservative. He is not a Christian. What he is doing is he is fostering this isolation of America from the rest of the world, from every one of our allies. And what's going to happen is, yes, America is going to reindustrialize and remilitarize in a major way. And what his plan is to say, what we had in the petrodollar here, basically we used our military to guard the rich oil interests of Saudi Arabia, so that everyone was trading in the petrodollar. I mean, it's Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and these guys. So that everyone was trading in the petrodollar, so that the dollar remains the main reserve currency for the world. Well, we're going to try to do that by saying to everybody, we'll protect you, Australia and the Philippines and Japan and all these guys from China, in exchange for you sticking to the dollar, but you're going to pay us for that. We're not just going to do it so that you use the dollar like we do with Saudi Arabia. You're going to pay us for that. So we propped up the Saudi government, which is these rich, Christian persecuting, women abusing, sick people who want to ride golden camels because they don't know how to do anything in terms of business or technology. We prop up these guys and everybody else is poor and miserable. Now we want to do that everywhere. We want to prop up the rich and the poor are miserable, but those rich keep trading in the petrodollar, and they keep buying military protection from us. And that military is not just protecting them from China, but from their own populations rising up and overthrowing them. America becomes the police force for the economic elites in all these other countries. In Europe, we want to do that against Russia. Maybe in Africa to limited degrees, we'll say we want to do that against China, but definitely in Arabia, we're doing that. So we're doing that here, we're doing that here, and we're doing that here. And while we completely dominate everything south of America, we want to essentially have an ally. We would love to see, Colombia and maybe Brazil become the mainstay, maybe Argentina, the mainstay of the bloc that we deal with. Definitely not Venezuela, definitely not people that are pro-China. And this has been our MO since the beginning of America. We've always wanted to just dominate this. We've overthrown governments left and right. And what we want, what Trump is saying to Russia right now is saying, you want to throw weight around your backyard? Okay, we'll look the other way while you throw weight around your backyard. If you look the other way, if you throw weight around, we throw weight around our backyard. Now, I want to tell you something. That's not Trump's plan. That was Vladimir Zhirinovsky's plan. That was exactly what Vladimir Zhirinovsky said in his book. If you read this, Last Bid for the South, you read all of this stuff. He wants to set up a new world order where China can throw their weight around anywhere south of them. Russia can throw their weight around south of them, so that'd be Afghanistan, Middle East, and stuff like that. Europe can throw their weight around in Africa, and America can throw their weight around in South America. And the world remains divided in these four spheres, and that's how the world order remains balanced. Trump is literally walking out Vladimir Zhirinovsky's My Struggle plan. That's literally what he's doing. And no analysts are telling you this. Nobody's paying attention to this. And part of that involves Russia taking over the Middle East, because that's south of them. So the idea is we're dealing with the Middle East, and that's why we're backing off out of the Middle East, because that is Vladimir Zhirinovsky's plan. And the idea is to deal with Israel and Saudi Arabia pretty much alone in the UAE, and basically say, if you guys want to not be taken over by them completely, because they're going to definitely dominate down up into Syria, Iraq, and Iran, if you don't want to be completely taken over by them, you pay us big bucks and send us your oil. And Israel, it's more about technology, but just having that beachhead. And we will sell you weapons forever. We'll sell you the weapons to make sure they don't totally take you over, so there's a balance of power there. But we're going to allow them to get half of Ukraine and Georgia and Azerbaijan, and then Turkey is going to be kind of a bulwark there, and they're kind of an island, because what we want is Turkey to be like, you need NATO. You need NATO or you're going to be dissolved, because that's in Vladimir Zhirinovsky's plan. And what we want is Iran to be the big bad and all these guys paying us to make sure they're not taken over. But everything outside of that, Afghanistan, all these stuff, you're going to probably see Iran. You're probably going to see a block of countries from Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and these other stand countries form like a revived Persian Empire. And then Russia is going to be very influential in that in terms of weapons and stuff like that. China, you're going to see China try to be that in Southeast Asia and definitely the South China Sea. And we're going to be that over here. And then, everybody's fighting for a piece of Africa like always. So what we want to do is say, yes, we want to let these guys loose to push their weight around here so that we can go down here into the Philippines, into China, or into Australia, New Zealand, and possibly Japan and say, stay on the petrodollar, buy our weapons forever. It's no longer American bases and us footing the bill to protect you guys from global communism. It's us selling you weapons and you paying us and you paying for our bases and staying on the petrodollar for us to protect you from China, who we're unleashing, and Russia, who we're unleashing on you. That's what they're doing. Russia, China, and Iran, basically. So we're basically telling these guys we're backing off from defending the world from what was once the Cold War bloc, the communist bloc, and then pay us, and you can keep the balance of power yourself. We're not going to do that for you anymore, but stay on the petrodollar. Well, how is that a win? How is that a win for them? And the answer is it's not. It's basically turning them into a bunch of vassal states who are taking the brunt of the economic brunt of defending our way of life from these guys. And what we're trying to do is do a balance of power where we've essentially got a ring around them in Europe, Saudi Arabia, Southeast Asia, and then these Eurasian powers, which is Gog Magog, that's who this is, Gog Magog and Persia, basically becomes one big entity that is exactly like the old Mongolian Empire in terms of pushing their weight around in economic cooperation. So when you understand that the Mongolian Empire was all the way to Poland, that's how far the Mongolian Empire was, all the way to Poland, all over Ukraine, all down into Turkey, down into Iraq and Iran, that's the Mongolian Empire, all the way down into India, all the way up into Tibet. They were actually allies with Tibet and adopted Buddhism from them, and all the way up into the northern half of China, all but this southern part right here, they totally controlled, all the way into the Koreas, and they were even invading Japan at one time, okay? That's the Mongolian Empire. It is coming back as Gog and Magog. It's becoming back as one big economic bloc. That's why you have Chinese and North Korean troops, which, remember, this part of China used to be called Inner Mongolia. This whole part, because this was all Mongolian peoples, and these were Cantonese people, and the Han Chinese basically are people who are probably closer related to the Mongolians than they are to the Vietnamese. And so these people who are were once North Korea, Inner China, or Inner Mongolia, Northern China, Mongolia, and all this, all of a sudden are all practicing training up their troops in Ukraine right now. This is Gog Magog forming. Historically, this Gog and Magog is North Korea and Mongolia. This is where their peoples were. You literally, like I met this Estonian model. She has Chinese eyes. Why? Because all the Mongols were all the way over here. Mongols had Russia. They were married in with the Russians, and the Russians were, the Muscovites, were throwing their weight around, and that's how they formed the Russian state. These were Kievan Rus and Muscovites. Those are two different people. That's Meshech and Riphath. That's who they're descended from. And these peoples, the Muscovites, were married in with the Mongols, and they were basically conquering all these lands for the Mongols. But once it became a strong enough bloc that they could unify it as their own state, they took over the Mongols' territory. But they were part Mongols when they took over the Mongol territory, okay? So this is more like, kind of like the Medo-Persians, where it's like it starts out with the Medes on top, but it turns into the Persians on top. Well, it started out with the Mongols on top with the Russians as their cohorts, and then the Russians took it over, okay? This has always been Magog, always Magog. And Gog used to be right here. Gog was the chief prince of Magog, okay? Well, of all these world rulers and all these people going at all this stuff, remember Xi Jinping is very old, Putin is very old, Trump is very old, but who's younger than me? Kim Jong-il. Kim Jong-il is in his, I think, late 30s now, maybe early 40s. I think he's in his mid to late 30s, honestly. So he's still young and he's still in power, and he's sending troops here, and they're all practicing. And we're like, he's dumb and incompetent, and he doesn't know anything. No, he has limited resources. He is not stupid, okay? And as these people start to fall apart, the young guy, just like stupid little Zelensky over here, is becoming like this hero, even though he's a dunce. What do you think they're going to do with Kim Jong-il as their old leadership starts to die off? Do you think they're going to treat him as a junior partner when he's been there since the beginning? And these guys are basically now have troops that are trained to fight here and here and here, and they're involved all over here? No, he's going to be a major force in this. And his troops are going to be a major force in this because he's got millions of them ready to go, ready to train, ready to fight. And no matter how many YouTube channels we put up mocking North Korean troops, they will die for him. You need to understand that. Russians are going to bitch about it when they get sent to war, but those North Koreans are going to die for him without question because they're entirely brainwashed. So make sure you understand he's becoming a boss player in all this. China is way more democratic than North Korea is in terms of the people being able to overthrow stuff. And so things are getting rough there, but they're starting to send troops there. Why? We're preparing. What are we preparing for? World War III is on now, okay? So I hope that makes sense. Again, you're probably going to have Chinese, Russian, North Korean troops and all this stuff over here in Canada by the time World War III gets full blown. You'll probably have a limited incursion down here, an incursion up from Mexico here, while we hold the line at the Rockies. So if you're in Colorado, Arizona, Idaho, all this stuff, you're going to be safe in terms of non-nukes. I would expect Denver, Colorado to get nuked. It's a major international airport. I think a lot of people are going to fly into there, the rich who's who, to go into underground civilization. And then they're going to nuke all the entrance to the underground civilization. And I expect there's going to be some of these inland ports where they're dumping a lot of goods into this underground civilization are going to get nuked to cover up where they went. That's what I expect. So that's the Millennium Underground starting. You guys have heard me talk about that. Eventually, hopefully, I'll have some books about it for your enjoyment and titillation. But right now, what you're looking at is Trump playing the game like he is going to make America great again, and he's going to actually make America either go full-blown Nazi Germany or look like it's going full-blown Nazi Germany to the point where the rest of the world feels justified to either let America fall or all gang up on it. And that's what's going to happen. When the movie Red Dawn came out, everybody backed off and let America get nuked and get invaded. And the only allies we had were the British and China. Well, we're basically telling them both to stick it right now. So there's nothing that we're actually being cool with the British, but the British is probably going to go try to rebuild a British Commonwealth, and that will be the King of the North when the Antichrist is here. But what we're just isolating America from everybody. Russia's still pushing into Ukraine. They've actually taken back the Kirkuk region for the most part that the Ukrainians have invaded. But what this really is, and people are like, oh, mocking Russian, like they're not making any advances and blah, blah, blah. What this is really a training ground. This is why this is going on for so long. You've got Russia, China, and North Korea all training troops to fight a bigger war while they scale up their economies for war. Meanwhile, in the West, you've got people trying drone technology and a smaller force basically creating a smarter, more nimble drone-based military tactic. So this is a training ground. You have Nagorno-Karabakh this was completely ethnically cleansed of Armenians. This was an Armenian enclave. This was a part of Armenia. It was an enclave of Armenians, and it was completely ethnically cleansed of Armenians. So it was essentially taken over by violent force by Azerbaijans, very much helped by Israeli drones. People don't tell you about this. The reason that they're countering this is because they want to close off this corridor, because that's what Russia's coming for next, is Georgia and Armenia down to Iran. So that's going to be happening next, as soon as they come up with a so-called peace deal in Ukraine that gives Russia everything they want. Trump is working out Vladimir Zhirinovsky's strategy for him. The reason they need that is because Turkey can block this in a full-blown invasion of the Middle East. They can block Russia from being able to resupply their troops here, and that's what they plan on doing. So that's why they need that land bridge. That's why they need this land bridge, and don't be surprised if they take, you see route for aid from Armenia. There was a single road here, basically, where this was supplied, and it's cut off now, and most of these people have been driven out. Don't be surprised if you see Russians and Armenians drive the Azerbaijanis out of here, because Turkey's not going to go to war with them over this. This is why Turkey started walling off their country 15 years ago, and now it's completely walled off. They know what's coming. They're like, we're going to wall off our entire country, put all kinds of landmines on the other side of that wall, and we are going to stay out of this and emerge as part of the New World Order after World War III. And China is probably going to largely do the same thing. India is probably somewhat going to do the same thing. They're not trying to fight for our crap. They've been the butt of way too much Western stuff throughout their history. So they're not going to do that. 2029, look for people going underground by 2029. Again, could be later. I'm not saying thus saith the Lord. I'm saying this is my prediction. Could be later. All this could get pushed back, but I don't see that coming. Nothing that I'm seeing going on in terms of the spiritual attitudes of people, the economic and political moves they're making, tells me anything but the white horse and the black horse are running large in America. I just went back and forth with my finance guy yesterday. 20-year relationship, one of my oldest Christian friends, literally mocking me after losing 20% of the money I had with him in the stock market. Thank God it was only like 5% of my ownings, my wealth. He was holding about 5% of my wealth, and he lost 20% of it. Literally, I had a gut check. He was offering to basically take all of my cash, all of my retirement savings, and all my cash, and grow it for me at 5 to 6% in a strategy that would keep me liquid. And what he had, I didn't sign that money over to him, and what he had, he lost 20% in the Trump stuff. And if he had did with it what I told him to, I would have gained 4%, but he did something entirely different, and he lost me 20%. I demanded that he take it all out of the stock market when I realized what was going on, and it was literally the day before that 20% drop, or that 2,000 point drop in the Dow, and it went from being down like 15 to 20% to a little over 20% lost in 8 months. Luckily, that was only $7,000 for me, but $7,000 is a lot of money. It could have been over $100,000 lost for me. It could have been 75 to $100,000 lost for me, which would have meant I wouldn't have been able to get the house I was hoping to get. When I'm telling this guy what he did and asking him to take accountability for it, he was literally mocking me and mocking my end times views. Okay? I literally sat down with this guy last year in August and said, we're heading into the black horse of the apocalypse, get all of my money out of the stock market. And he just ignored me. He said he would, and then he just pulled it out of some mutual funds and just put it in other mutual funds, as if he knew better than me what to do with my own money. He got me to sign paperwork that he told me he was going to do one thing, got me to sign paperwork to say he was going to do a certain thing. He told me what he was going to do, then got me to sign paperwork to give him control of that money, and then he just did what he wanted to do with it. And when it cost me money, he took no responsibility. He said I did it. He tried to blame me for not filling out the paperwork to give him the rest of my money as the reason. He said, I've got tons of clients that think I'm a good advisor, so take your money and go elsewhere. You're a joke, basically. He basically said, you're basically a joke. You're in your 40s and you've got your money in cash and CDs. You're a joke. I've got stock analysts all over the world saying, don't invest right now. Wait for the dust to settle on this crazy tariff stuff before you invest. I'm not touching the stock market until it bottoms out from whatever's going on right now. If you have money and you have access to cash and you can put that cash in something like paying down your house, something that is always going to net returns for you, like paying down your house, or paying off a car, that is way more valuable to you than the stock market. And I realize if that's in your retirement accounts, you are going to pay a penalty on that. But people need to start thinking about this. And this is what I've been living on, okay? I'm putting my money where my mouth is. For me to access to my retirement accounts and have a better option than paying that penalty, listen to me. For me to do that, I have to believe that it's going to be more than 20 years before the Lord returns. We are on AI. We unleashed AI 2 years ago, and a year later we're on AI sending AI to send AI drones to kill people with no human oversight. That's in Israel. We are on drones, all of the world being used for weaponry. We are on economic manipulation, and World War III growing. So if you think it's over 20 years before Christ returns, then definitely keep your money in your stock accounts and don't risk paying that penalty. But there are ways around that, okay? There's such a thing as a SEP IRA. You can set up a SEP IRA, which I have, where you can control your retirement funds. And you can literally take those funds. Let's say you've got $100,000 in there, okay? You can take those funds, go buy a trailer in a trailer park. Like I'm looking at doing this right now. You can go buy a trailer in a trailer park for $20,000, up to $120,000 or whatever for a double wide. Okay, you can buy a trailer for $20,000. You own the trailer. Okay, that trailer park charges you $700 to have that trailer on the lot. You now have a rentable apartment that you pay $700 a month for out of your retirement account, but you can rent it out for $800 or $900 a month. You can literally do that. Okay. That money will go back into your retirement account, but it keeps growing way faster than it will in the stock market. That kind of stuff is going to be valuable, and that's what I'm looking at doing. When I told my finance guy I was going to be looking at doing stuff like that, he made fun of me like I'm an idiot. I'm like, this is like, you can buy, this is right up the street from my house. I can buy a trailer that's in good shape for $20,000 that would be rented to somebody 55 and older in a community for them where it's got pools and golf and all that stuff, but they're living in a trailer. The trailer cost me $20,000, and then I'm renting it out. I'm paying their $710 a month fee out of my fund, but renting it out to them at $800 or $900 a month. So I'm making $200 a month on an initial down investment of $20,000 plus those fees. They're paying all their own electricity and stuff like that, but that's still less than half the price of an apartment here. And all of a sudden, I'm making roughly $200 a month on an investment of $20,000, which means I'm yielding 12% per year, which is double what you're going to get on average from your 401k returns. Okay, you can do stuff like that. And I'm just saying, be wise with your money. Learn what a SEP IRA is. Learn how to control your money. You can also give loans to people. Now listen to me, Christians. All Christians can put your money in a SEP IRA account. You can loan money to other Christians. I want you to hear this, Christians. You can loan all of your retirement money to other Christians, and they can loan the same amount back to you from their retirement account, and then claim a loss on the business of doing that, just like you lose money in the stock market. You can get all of your money out of your retirement accounts back into your pockets legally if Christians are doing this. You can't do it with your wife, but you can do it with your girlfriend. You can't do it with your grandma, but you can do it with a little old lady at church. She can get her money out and loan it to you. You can get your money out and loan it to her through a SEP IRA account, and you can get your money free and clear out of your retirement account without paying the tax penalty. And when the tax man comes to you, you say, yeah, I made a bad investment. I made a bad investment. They don't care if you lose all your money in the stock market from your Roth or your SEP IRA. So you can lose it to a personal loan. You can do that completely legally. There are ways to get your money out of your retirement account, use it without paying the tax penalty, and then invest it in stuff that's going to yield you bigger returns. And I am not great with money. I'm a C+ with money. I've been blessed to earn some money. and God's given me wisdom in certain things, but I'm not great with this stuff. But one thing I know is the stock market is a Ponzi scheme. Okay? I watched this video on the stock market history, okay? And you guys need to hear this. This is what your financial managers are going to tell you. They're going to keep saying it no matter what. The stock market always goes up. But what they're not going to tell you is major government intervention here, major overhaul of the financial system here, major government intervention here, overhaul the financial system here, overhaul the world order here, world war here, world war here, world war here, and all these things in order to make the stock market keep going up. It is a Ponzi scheme. The reason it keeps going up is because all the congressmen are allowed to inside trade. They are going to make the senators are going to make 3 times your returns. The congressmen are going to make 2 times your returns. So yes, if it's a casino and they're allowed to count cards and you're not, they're going to make sure the casino stays running. It's that simple. They will always make sure the casino stays running, and as long as this trend line goes up, and it literally is mostly going up because of inflation, they want you to consider the fact that it's always a good place to put your money. But here's what's really going on with all these retirement accounts. They're flipping your money back and forth for commissions and fees, and they're getting those commissions and fees, and they're never trying to get you more than the minimum amount it takes you to not take your money and go elsewhere. And they're all doing it. And this is why people are telling you, you get a yield of about 6%. If you stay in the stock market and you make wise picks, over time you get about 6% returns. Well, that's great if the inflation rate is under 3%. But what happens when the inflation rate is over 6%? You're still losing. See, if I grow a farm and the price of eggs is quadrupled, but I've got a bunch of chickens producing eggs, I'm good. I'm way better than I am in the stock market. If the price of rent doubles, which it is, me owning a rental, which is going to, even if I don't double my rent, even if I just 50% it up, I'm still doing way better in terms of returns on that asset than I am the stock market. Stock markets and mutual funds are not a good investment strategy. And people who know money in business know that. But that's why they go for your retirement accounts. They take the same drone people who think working for a corporation makes you a better person than trying and failing at your own business. And they take those same drones that are taught to just punch in, punch out, and do what they're told. And they say, do what you're told and give me your money and I'll give you 6% returns. And they've routinely lost people massive amounts of retirement income over and over and over again. And then those people have to stay in the workforce, and then they're there too long, and then other people are not getting jobs because they're needing to do that to survive. That's what happened in '08. That's what happened in '01. That's what's happened over and over again. And people who analyze the stock market are like, every decade something like this happens. And there's some major government change, some major policy change, some major financial manipulation, or a world war or an overhaul to right the ship and get it going up again. So what the stock market really does is this. It goes up, balloons, and falls. What government intervention does is make it start growing again. That's the reality of the stock market. It's a Ponzi scheme. Companies can literally, what they're doing when they're selling you stock is they're getting a bunch of money from you to capitalize and grow their company. And it's cheaper to get it from you than it is from the bank, because if they go bankrupt, well, they have to sell off their assets and pay the loan to the bank, okay? But if they go bankrupt, they don't have to pay their shareholders. If they go bankrupt, they might have to sell off all their business assets to pay back the bank before they can reorganize. But if that money is stock invested, and I just had this happen with $30,000 last year. A company called Enviva Biomass was looking like a really good bet. Enviva basically was following a glitch in the policies about going against fossil fuels. Trees are fossil fuels. But there was a policy shift in places like Europe and Japan that said biomass, which is basically pellet wood stoves, don't count as fossil fuels because it's made from recycled material. And so what they did is they started this great big company claiming to make wood from recycled trees. In other words, we're going to go, when we go cut down trees to make 2x4s out of them, all the branches that we cut off those trees, we're going to turn into biomass. Well, they weren't really doing that. They were really clear-cutting forests to make the biomass. And what they did to grow their company is sell stock with, I think it was like a 10% dividend. It's crazy high dividend for a stock. If you get a stock with a 4% dividend, you're doing great. They were selling stock with a 10% dividend. So if you're buying some stock for them with $7, you're automatically going to make 70 cents a year off that stock, and that's not including growth. Then, when all the oil and natural gas prices started skyrocketing during COVID, and Europe started shutting down all their nuclear power plants and saying we're not going to build nuclear power plants, and then making the price of oil and gas go really high, and Japan did too. These people were looking really great because they could sell them pellets for pellet stove, and people in remote areas of the world and people in countries with stupid green policies were saying, shoot, the cheapest option for heating fuel is these pellet stoves. And so they looked like they were heading towards a huge market share on pellet stoves, and they were buying ports. They were buying processing facilities where they were turning trees into this. They were buying land where they were just cutting forests. And this stock went from being like $3 to $75. I was buying it between $7 and $15, and then it went up to $85. And I'm like, great, I should have got out then. If I had got out then, I would have probably made somewhere around 50 grand. It then dropped all the way down to nothing. And as soon as they stopped paying their dividends, people realized this is a Ponzi scheme. Let me explain how a Ponzi scheme works. If I'm in a Ponzi scheme, I'm going to borrow money from you. And I'm going to say, I'm going to borrow money from you and you're going to get 10% back. Okay? How am I giving you that 10%? Am I making 10% profit off the $100 you gave me? No. I'm going to get other people and promising them the same thing. And eventually, I run out of people to sucker into giving me their money. Because what I'm doing is the next people I give 10% of their money to you. And you tell people, I'm getting 10% returns on this stuff. And then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And you do this. That's how a Ponzi scheme works. This was a Ponzi scheme with assets. That's all it was. And so once they stopped giving that dividend out, people knew the Ponzi scheme is over. And this thing, I want to show you this. This was Enviva. This was Enviva, okay? I was buying into Enviva, and here's the reason I knew about Enviva. I was actually recruiting a guy for a company that made all of the green stuff they put on the side of the roads when they replant the grass after doing a highway job. And I was recruiting a guy for that company. I was talking to people at Enviva. And they explained to me what this is, and they're like, this is a good bet because of the policies. But policies can change overnight. And as soon as people realize this is a company towing itself as a green company, and now it's really just a company that's clear-cutting forests and destroying the environment, they changed their policies and said no more of that crap. And they changed their policies, and it went from this up. This is when I was buying it, 2018 to 2020, or I'm sorry, I think it was like 2020 to 21 where I was buying it, where I'm buying it right here, not paying super close attention because I'm writing a book and running my recruiting business and popping YouTube videos, not paying super close attention. I turn around and it's going way up like this. I'm like, great, super. Then I see it going down like this and I'm like, oh, that sucks. But hey, I'm still way up. Then I see it go up again. I'm like, oh, cool, super. And then I see it start to go down and I'm like, crap, I need to sell. And I didn't think it was going to go down below where it was. I thought it was going to settle back where I was. But by the time it started dropping, it dropped so fast down to $10.50. By that time, I owned a bunch of it at an average price of around $15 from $10. And then it did what people are doing at the last thing, is pump and dump, little tiny pump and dumps to try to make it look like it's coming back. And I made a mistake and bought a bunch more to try to recover my 50%, and I ended up losing $30,000. I ended up losing $30,000 when I could have probably made $50,000. And that's when I quit messing around with stocks because I wasn't paying close enough attention to it. I had too many things going on. Okay. Now, this was one of two stocks that I had a big loss on. The other one was a company that was claiming to make core technology for drones and drones themselves based on laws that Trump had passed that said any drones involved in critical infrastructure monitoring is need to have their core components made in the U.S. That way they're not hackable by China. And this company was claiming to do this, and I forget the name of the company. Plymouth Rock Technologies was the name of the company. And Plymouth Rock Technologies was claiming to make all kinds of unmanned drone vehicles. Its stock, they were able to get themselves on some, I can't even find them, they might be gone. Is that 4 cents? 4 cents. Now, Plymouth Rock Technologies was able to get themselves on a bunch of newspaper reports somehow that said that they were one of the top 10 investments for up-and-coming drones. And I did some research on them, and they were claiming to have sensing technology that was used for bomb detection that was proprietary because their guy was on the patent for this stuff, and that they were going to get invested in drones that would be involved in critical infrastructure monitoring and bomb and weapon detection from afar. Okay? That's what their claim was. This stock went from, I want to say around $1 to around $3 in the time that I was getting in. Okay? So it's triple your money. That's really great. And so I ended up with about $10,000 to $20,000 worth of this stuff. Then I started doing my research when it dropped back down to $1. So I'm sorry, I'm getting in between $1 and $2, so I'm probably averaging like, let's say, $1.50 a share. I think it was like $1.25 to $1.50 a share, and then it drops back down to $1, and all of a sudden I'm down a few grand, and I'm trying to figure out why I'm losing. And so I started doing research on LinkedIn on this stuff, and remember, it was a small company, it was a startup, but they seemed to have some promising technology. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do some research on this and see who works at Plymouth Rock Technologies so I can figure out if this is a bad bet. And since I have 20,000 LinkedIn connections, I have access to a lot of people. And if you have the full recruiting package, you have access to all of LinkedIn, okay? So it's apparently gone now. So I got out of this like 2 years ago, and it's apparently gone already. When I started researching the people in it, they were a bunch of guys who were just listed as a VP or a director on like 10 to 20 different startups. Nothing in the company was legit. When I finally found the company's number in Boston, I called and the CEO picked up the phone. I talked to Dana Wheeler. He picked up on the first dial. This is the CEO of Plymouth Rock Technologies. I talked to him. He picked up on the first dial, telling me what a great move this is. From one conversation, I actually recorded the conversation. I was going to put it on YouTube, but I decided not to do that at risk of getting sued or something because he didn't know I was recording him. And I was like, this guy's completely full of crap. What this guy had is he was part of a company that developed shoe bomb detection technology for airports. It was this massive contraption that was supposed to go under the floor of airports, and it never got picked up. It was one of multiple designs that were competing to get basically the bomb detection technology at airports, and they lost. But they were using his background in doing that, and the fact that there was another Dana Wheeler. Look at this. This is amazing. I actually contacted this Dana Wheeler. This Dana Wheeler is a principal program manager at L3 Harris. They make the Harris jet, the British jet that the engines turn sideways and it turns into a hovercraft and then it flies away as a jet. They make that, okay? They're one of the top weapons manufacturers in the world. Look at this person's background. Leonardo DRS, that's the people who are supposedly involved in rigging the elections. Lockheed Martin, 14 years. Like at the time I talked to her, she had 14 years at Lockheed Martin. Well, this Dana Wheeler worked for a company that was a subsidiary for Lockheed Martin a long time ago. I mean, like 25 years ago. It wasn't a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin when he worked there, but he was being advertised as a R&D scientist for Lockheed Martin. Meanwhile, you've got this Dana Wheeler, who is a program manager for weapon systems with 14 years of experience at Lockheed Martin, starting off as a systems and software engineer. So your average investor would look up Dana Wheeler and find this person at Lockheed Martin, and they were saying Dana Wheeler, who used to be an R&D for Lockheed Martin, is our CEO. And they would look at this and be like, "Ooh, cool. That's definitely credible." Okay? So this person's a computer science background, worked for Lockheed Martin for 14 years. I contacted her. I said, "Do you know someone's using your name?" And I'm talking to this Dana Wheeler. I'm like, "Did you really ever work for Lockheed Martin?" And he's like, "Oh, I worked for blah, 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 Skunk Works, and then they were acquired by Lockheed Martin." So basically, he worked for a R&D company way back in the day that was later acquired by Lockheed Martin. So I'm like, so they're telling people that you work for Lockheed Martin. You never worked for Lockheed Martin. That's like me saying, I worked for Amazon because I worked for a company that was bought by Amazon 20 years later after I left. So this is fraud. But there was so much pump and dump fraud going on during COVID because they knew so many people had money that was given them by the government and couldn't spend it on anything else. And so they were doing pump and dumps left and right to screw these people out of their money in the stock market. And I fell for it to the tune of a total amount of losses of, I think, like $40,000 to $50,000. I made a bunch of money before losing that money, but I ended up net losing on my own investments. And I realized, these people can lie. These people will defraud people out of their money, and I can be one of the many people who get in a class action lawsuit and get 30 cents returned to them, because who are you going to get money from? This guy, the CEO, is 75 years old, and everyone else in the company are nobodies, and literally he was the only person in the United States. The rest were in England and Canada. England and Canada. So you're never going to get your money from them. So I can get on a class action lawsuit and not get anything. But this guy basically, the owners of the company got a bunch of stock, and they probably sold off theirs before it dumped and made some money. And then the rest of us just got screwed out of our money. They were never going to put together this drone technology company. They had a few pictures of themselves at trade shows, and that's why when you look them up, their stock is worth 4 cents. Where is their website that was there a few months ago? This is 2021. This is supposedly their drone swarm technology, but they never had anything going on with proprietary technology, anything remotely near what they said. They had this 75-year-old guy playing with drones and claiming to have this technology, and this was his shoe detection device. This is never going in a drone. This was the device he was on the patent for to make bomb technology. They're never going to shrink that down and put that in a drone. It also never got picked up by the U.S. government. It also isn't his technology. He's on the patent, but another company owned it. So his name is on the patent. It's not his technology. But they were spinning all this to make it look like this guy, who's this genius in sensing technology, is going to help us put the latest, best American-made sensing technology in these drones, and we're going to get all the contracts for guarding critical infrastructure. That made a lot of sense to me, and so I bit. And a lot of people bit. And a lot of people bit hard and fast. And this was literally... I can't even find their line anymore. But it went from a stock that was worth pennies to a stock that was worth $3 and something. Which, if it's that cheap, you can literally... it's literally going up almost 100-fold to bottoming out in nothing over the course of a few years. Again, on paper, looks like a good company, but the only reason I was able to find out it was all a scam and too late was because I have access to all of LinkedIn, and I looked over every single one of their people in the company, and I realized these are all just professional startup pump and dump guys. And the one guy who has any kind of technical credibility is 75 years old. So how long does he need to be in this? Not at all. And after I basically said, here's this guy and it's bullcrap, they removed him from being the CEO, shoved him in the background. They started coming after me on LinkedIn saying, you're ruining our company. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Your company's a shell. There's nothing there. They had a tiny little drone fab shop in England, and one guy sitting in an office in Boston. And when your CEO answers the phone on the first dial and tries to sell me stock into his company, that tells me you don't have a company. And that was the case. So this kind of stuff is going on all over the country with different stuff, and it happens with big, huge corporations too. That's why Enron and this stuff happened. That's why all these things with these big, huge hedge funds that destroyed the housing market in '08 happened. Go watch the movie The Big Short. These are not little startup companies that screwed a bunch of people. These are literally the cornerstone of our financial and lending and banking complex, screwing people over like this. And they know they're screwing people over, and they get out first, and they get their money, and you lose all of yours. This has happened again and again and again in history, okay? Well, now there's a big one coming. When the Bible says there's a black horse of the apocalypse that's coming with World War III, with persecution of Christians, with a spiritual delusion, we're there. We are there. When the Bible says that they're going to go underground and say, hide us from the wrath of the Lamb because they just ripped off the world and murdered a quarter of the world, and now they're going to go hide from the wrath of the Lamb because they know he's coming to stop them. And then somebody's advertising, call this number and you can get a bunker underground. That's suspect to me. I'm going to assume that's real. When the Dow starts going up and down this is the biggest single day stock market dip in U.S. history. There's only 100 years of stock data. Don't let your financial manager tell you the stock market always goes up. We have the data. We have 100 years of data. Look at this. Online, when you go to Max on the stock market, it goes back to the 80s. And then you look at that and they show you this. This is called advertising, y'all. It goes back to the 80s. In the 80s, the stock market was at 1,200 points. Now the stock market was just at 40,000 points. Well, this is the biggest dip in history because back in the 1980s, the entire Dow Jones Industrial, look at this, was 1,200 points. 1,200 points was the entire value of the Dow, and it's now up to 40,000 points. But look, back in 2010, it was 8,000 points. So from 2018 to 2010, 30 years, it goes up, not even quadruple. It goes up about 6 times, okay? So what's 6 times 8? That's 48. From 2010 to 2025, half as much time, it goes up almost the same amount. What's going on here? Inflation. Do you know what a house cost in 1980? The median brand new home in 1980 was $68,000. $68,000 for a brand new house. And those houses had 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and a living room and a den and a family room. At a minimum, you had a family room and a living room and a dining room and then 4 bedrooms. My parents' house has 4 bedrooms, a living room, a dining room, a basement that could be remodeled, and was enough for a family of 8, and it cost $80,000 in the early 80s on 5 acres of land. Beautiful land. That's what houses cost. Now, it's $512,000. Almost 10x. Almost 10x. So the stock market is going up faster than the housing cost, but guess what else is in all this value? Bullcrap cryptocurrency and ETFs, which are basically beanie babies. Credit default swaps, which are basically betting against people being able to pay their mortgages and that turning into a commodity that's traded. They're literally betting against people being able to pay their bills. That's what credit default swaps are. You have all this balloon fluff that is not tied to any real value that is built into this to the tune of trillions. And when that stuff starts to go, a lot of speculative companies that are never going to return dividends and never going to return profits to their shareholders and go bankrupt and all that stuff, when that stuff goes, all this wealth disappears. What they just did is they made a whole, like look at this year. It went from 38 to 45. Okay? 7,000 point increase in a year. That's huge. Just so you know, it took back in the day to go 7,000 points up from 1985. I'm sorry, it wasn't even 1980. It's 1985. From 1985 to go up 7,000 points, it took almost to the year 1998. So 13 years to go up. That much growth happened in 1 year. Okay? And then it disappeared, just like that. Why? Because it's becoming increasingly transparent that we can make a policy change in the federal government, make it go up and down, and the only people who are going to know what's coming are the people who know the politicians. In other words, the rich interests that get them elected, and the people in Congress who know the policies coming. Other people are fortunate enough to guess and see what's coming, but they can't really, unless they got a seat at the table with Donald Trump and his boys, they can't know what's happening. Which is why it went down and up. This is him just bluffing and gambling and playing with the world economy and playing with people's retirement savings to accomplish something that makes perfect sense in his head, and half the world says is insane. The other half of the world says it's going to drive us into World War III, and somewhere in the middle is a bunch of people who think he's playing 5D chess because he's just a genius. If you think that's a safe place to put your money, God bless you. But this is reality. Here's Zillow. And I just want to show you. I'm here in Phoenix. This is what I'm going to look at doing with my money. I don't know if I legally can yet. I have to double check. And I would suggest doing this graciously and charitably, you guys, if you can afford to. Now look at this. You're going to have a lot of old people losing their homes. I mean, there's literally old people who are like, I bought my home for $10,000 back in the 60s. I paid it off, but now I got to pay $1,000 a year in interest. That was more than my entire, or $1,000 a year in taxes and another $1,000 a year in insurance. So I'm paying double my old mortgage because of inflation to keep my house, and they're losing their houses. But they could sell their house for $500,000 and move in with one of their kids, and they're doing that. Okay? It's a sad state of affairs. But here's what I can do, and I just want to show you guys what I'm looking at doing, just so you guys can get an example. So you can set up a SEP IRA. You can get online and figure out how to do that. You can go to LegalZoom. They can teach you how to do that. Or just, you're going to have to read and research how to do it. But essentially, you have to set up a bank account. You have to set up an LLC, and you have to set up a trust. That trust, who keeps track of my record keeping, so it's all legit with the IRS, cost me $300 a year. Okay? With that SEP, all I need to do is make $300 a year, and it's good. Now, when I was putting that money in there, if I had paid taxes on it, I would have paid 35 to 40% tax rate because I was making good money. So I put that money there, and so I've got a lot of money to lose before it's really going to cost me. But what I can do with that money, so this is what I'm looking at doing. So here are trailers. And these are trailers that are not super swank. Some of them are okay looking, but these are 20, 28 grand, 45 grand, things like this. Let's say you have a bunch of money in your retirement account. Again, you can move that money over to a SEP out of the stock market so that you're not paying a penalty on it, okay? You could go get a trailer for $2,200. Now, this is in Phoenix where it's nice and hot, so you need at least an awning for your vehicle, but you're fine. The weather's always nice. It's going to get hot in the summer, so you're going to have AC, and you literally can go to somebody and say, here's basically the equivalent of a one-bedroom apartment for you where you can park your car, and you have a nice little walkway, and there's pools, and there's decks, and there's stuff for you to do there. And I'm paying $700 a month for the lot, which means you're paying $800 a month for your plus your electric. Minus your $22,000, just do the math on that. So you're paying down that $22,000 first of all, okay? Once that thing is free and clear, you're at 12% gain. So $22,000, is 220 months. 220 months is a little less than 10 years. So if you're just paying that thing off at $100 a month, you're going to pay that off in 10 years. After 10 years, that money is going to be gaining you off your original investment 12%. Okay? So if you're just taking half of that 100 and paying that off over the course of 20 years, that's going to be paid off and you're making a 6.5% investment. That is exactly what you're getting on average in your stock market returns. It's literally that. It's you're making $100 and you're putting 50 towards paying off the cost of that thing. And in reality, you're paying it off in a lump, but you're getting $100 a month. And over the course of that, you're getting 6% returns. You're getting that what you get in the stock market if you just charge them $100 more than you pay for the lot. Okay? They're paying for their own electric, which means if you're using the AC all day, every day, then I'm not paying, $200 a month or $300 a month for your AC, whatever that is. But if they're being reasonable and they're being frugal, you can literally offer somebody an apartment for $800 a month. Which, do you know what an apartment costs in Phoenix right now? Under 1,000, nothing. Nothing under 1,000, okay? I'm just going to pick an apartment complex. And this is the cost. One bedroom, 680 square feet. So that's like 200 square feet more than that trailer. $1,479 a month. So $800 more than that. A 2-bedroom, $1,900 a month. A 3-bedroom, $2,200 a month. That's how much apartments are. Where you can get, this could be like some elderly person on a fixed income. You could literally set that person up where you're like, boom. And that $2,200 for you is yielding 6%, okay? Now, what I have to do is figure out if this village where they're at, because it's for 55 plus, will allow me to own it and rent it to an elderly person. But the point is I can take, let's say I got $200,000 in the stock market. I can buy 8 of these, and it's yielding me the same returns as my stock investments legally, and I'm finding 8 elderly Christians or couples and taking care of them. And all I'm doing is getting the same returns I'd get in the stock market, but I just found a way for 8 Christian elderly couples to have something like you can have a car there, or maybe you don't have a car, but that's your space. And then this is what you have. You've got a TV, you've got a little patio area, and over here, again, it might only be 500 feet indoors, but that's okay because at night and pretty much half the year, you're sitting outdoors. It hardly ever rains here. You're in the sun, you're going out to the pool, you've got some nice used furniture there, you've got a nice gas stove and all this stuff. Your utilities, if you're frugal, which old people are if they know what they're doing, your utilities year-round might average somewhere around $100 to $150 a month. So their total bill over the course of the year is $950 a month. They're living on $10,000 a year. That's working with their fixed income, and they're able to buy food or get donations or be on food stamps. Okay? And they've got a bedroom. Again, that's a couple. They've got a bathroom, nice clean bathroom. They've got a table, and they've got all this, and then they can sit outside and have a nice little patio set up where it's like a nice little dining room. And the only time that's too hot is too hot in the summer, except at night. And in the meantime, during that place, that little old couple can hang out here where they've got a trailer community of people who are 55 and older and a pool and tennis courts and stuff like that, and a golf green where they can putz around. They can be around people that are near to them. And within 5 miles from them, there's an Aldi. There's inexpensive groceries. There's Walmart. There's everything that they need, okay? You can do that to get the exact same returns with less volatility than you would get on the internet. You just need to set up the SEP IRA. So trust me, your financial manager is really a salesman for hedge funds and what are they called? mutual funds. They're a salesman for those guys. They're not working for you. They're working for those guys. Those guys pay them their money to get your money from you and give it to them so they can play with it and make money for them and give minimal returns to you. That's what's going on, okay? This is you controlling your money, and here's your worst case scenario. Imagine I do this. All of a sudden, it's just like, crap, I need my money. Guess what? I own 8 trailers. And the cost of those trailers, because of inflation, is more valuable. And so all of a sudden, in hyperinflation, crap, I need my cash back. I'm going to sell one of those trailers and say, here's the trailer. I'll sell it to you. Again, they might raise the rents on those people, but the point is you can sell it. Maybe those elderly people die. Maybe they get old and they die. And then you sell the trailer for twice what you bought it for. And all of a sudden, your 6% return just turned into a 15% return because you doubled your money on your original investment plus the money you made the whole time they were living there. You can do that from now till kingdom come with your SEP. And everywhere in the world, there are trailer parks. And you know what those trailer parks are missing? People who care. One is if it's elderly people, they're not gangbangers running around selling drugs in the trailers. But 2, people like you who can come there and paint and put some used furniture in and spend a few bucks and be frugal and go there and make sure you're taking care of somebody and not just yourself. You're keeping their rents low. And again, they're not all like that. Some of these are, up to $120,000 units, $150,000 units, because they're straight up full on houses. Some of these units is 1,300 square feet, but you're still paying for the lot, which might be like $700 because it's just a cement pad and you just got basically utility hookups on it. That's it. And you're paying for this double wide. And again, maybe something like that, you're renting out at, $1,200 a month, but it's got 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. And if it's literally could be like 2 elderly couples and some other old lady living there. And all of a sudden it's 3, 4, 5 people paying, a few $100 a month a piece, while you're making $300 instead of $100 extra, and it's taking you 20 years to pay that off. But who cares? You're taking care of people. And if it comes down to it, there are things you can do with lending money back and forth within your SEPs to other people and say, oops, we lost the money, when you're really just clearing it away from taxes. There's things that you can do like that legally. Don't say, Aaron told me so I did it. Go make sure you're talking to an accountant and make sure you're doing it legally. But there's things like that you can do. Christians need to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. If I loan you $100,000 and you loan me $100,000 and I don't pay you back and you don't pay me back, that's a net zero. Okay? What happened? I just had a loss of $100,000 on my business. I also had a loss of $100,000 on my business. Legally. What is your business? Oh, it's part of my trading. Now, if you lose $100,000 in the stock market on that retirement savings, nobody cares. The government doesn't care. So if you lose it making a loan to somebody, then who's also making a loan to you, they don't care. You don't have to report. If you get audited in your SEP, you have to report, here's my profits, here's my losses, okay? Well, that's a legal loss that they can't say you couldn't have made that loan. If I can loan my money to a company through the stock market and lose it, then I can loan my money to an individual and lose it. And if they're fine with one, they have to be fine with the other legally. And you can do it mutually. So be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. Don't be dumb with your money, but don't think Jesus is looking for you to have $1 million in a retirement account when he gets here to show him what a good steward you are either. The reason I brought up the thing I brought up with a financial guy is to say, this is somebody I've known and been talking about eschatology to for 20 years. And what I find as the time goes on is they fall like dominoes saying, you know what, you're crazy and stupid. I'm doing what the world's doing. They're lukewarm. They follow the money, they follow the policy, and they follow what they think is going to be best for them in terms of their long-term retirement strategy. The last thing they're thinking about is, I'm going to shift gears because I think the end is here. Well, what did James say to that? James said, this is prophecy, y'all. James is not talking about people in this time, nor were the apostles mistakenly thinking that they were in the end times. Okay, this is James saying, "Go ye now, rich men, howl, for your miseries shall come upon you." See, shall. Who are the rich men? Is he talking to his immediate audience? No, it's a dual fulfillment. It has something to do with them that also is projected in the future. This is prophecy. Your riches are corrupted, your garments moth-eaten, your gold and silver is cankered. The rust of them will be witness against you and shall eat your flesh as if it were fire. You have heaped up treasure together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which you have kept back by fraud, cry, and the cry of them which have reaped have entered in the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. Okay? Now, the laborers who have reaped down your fields could literally be people who are preaching the gospel, and you're supposed to be supporting them in their work. You have reaped down and entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. You have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. You have nourished your hearts as in the day of slaughter. What's happening? Oh, you've got your 2-3 vacations a year in your super nice house and all your nice cush stuff, and you're not really doing anything for anybody but yourself, but you're calling yourself a good steward, and that means you're a good Christian. Literally having people talk to me like this, like I am a fool and a bum, because what did I do? I gave a bunch of my money away to missionaries, and then I live frugal. I'm renting a bedroom for somebody right now because I don't have a family and I don't need a house. That may change in the next year. It very well may change this year. But I don't need all that, and I don't need to live lux like that. And meanwhile, I'm giving money away for the kingdom. But I'm not being a wise steward, says certain people. Okay, call me a bum. You show up to Jesus with your pile of money, and I'll show up to him with my dragnet of souls, and you tell me which one gets a smile and which one gets a frown. This is how people are. So he says, be patient for the coming of the Lord. Again, this is about the harvest. The harvest is people. Those who win souls are wise. So, I'm not telling you to get rid of all your money and go blow it and go wait on a hill with your arms up to be raptured. Okay? But I am telling you to be wise as serpents and as gentle as doves as we get closer. And I'm doing my best to do that. I am also considering the possibility that I'm wrong in my timing and I might have to make it to retirement. So I'm not trying to get rid of all of my money. I am trying to look towards things like maybe a home, maybe a reasonable home ownership, maybe something that I can sell later on if I underestimated how long it would be for the Lord's return, and maybe I'm the guy who ends up in a trailer. But I'm not going to be ashamed of myself if I did. If I end up retired in a trailer with my little old wife saying, look at us living in a trailer in our 60s, and say, I'm going to say to her, I'm going to say, honey, how many missionaries did we give money to? How many people did we disciple? How many people did we help with our money? And she's going to look at me and she's going to say, worth it. Worth it to be in this trailer. Because I'm not looking for a woman who's anything but that. That's the heart of Christ. We're ambassadors here. We're not here to build a kingdom. We are here to get people saved. And this is the test of America saying, hey, where's your heart? Nothing that's going on is on accident, and it's not simply the devil. It's God allowing this trial to say, where is your heart? When times get tough, are you going to give mine, or are you going to give, trust? And the rubber's hitting the road, just like in '08. The liars and crooks and thieves are multiplying, and you're going to find them among your Christian friends, just like I did in '08. And I can't thank the Lord enough that I learned way back in '08 what Christians will do to you when you're down and out. They will look the other way. I don't know him. I can't thank the Lord enough that he brought me all the way down to the bottom and then all the way up to being a millionaire to realize, you know what they'll do when you're down? Nothing to help you. You know what they'll do when they're up? Anything to get your money. That's what the Christians are like. What's the world like? They're worse, but at least they're not hypocrites. At least they're honest about what they're after. The Christians are calling themselves good stewards while doing that. And shame on you for using that term. Good steward. A good steward gives away his... never mind. Christians are idiots. Sorry, not all Christians are idiots. Lukewarm Christians are idiots. So, this is where we are. And as this stuff is going forward, again, I'm going to report on it quarterly at best. I am not going to try to do this all the time. So, stay in the Word, you guys. Just keep tracking. Focus on eschatology. Get on my eschatology playlist. Get caught up. And these updates will make a lot of sense. You won't need a lot more than that. So, hope you guys are blessed by this. Batman out. Peace.